Hi again, I am Ishika, and in the previous videos of the series, I talked about why I decided to do a PhD and gave a brief overview of what my PhD application timeline looked like. And to summarize, I divided my entire timeline into three phases. The first one was March to June, which was more of an exploration kind of a phase. And in this video, I will go deeper into what all I did during this phase. So, as I mentioned before as well, this in the beginning of this phase, I was still figuring out what it means to do a PhD and what all I need to prepare myself for a good and a strong PhD application. So, I'll talk a little bit about how I went about finding answers to these questions. The first thing was identify who could help me out in this process. This meant looking out for maybe college alumni or some common contacts in your circle who might have applied for a PhD before. Now, it's not necessary that the person you are speaking to is from your field of research. However, if they broadly fall under your field of research, for example, I do HCI research, but it broadly falls under computer science research. So, talking to another PhD student who might have applied for some other subfield of CS would also be helpful. I was lucky enough to have some college seniors who were in HCI and applied for a PhD there. And so the very first thing I did in my application cycle was to reach out to such seniors and get on calls with them, ask them what all they did during their application cycle, what did it look for them, clarifying what the requirements are. So I know everything and I have not missed out anything major. And yeah, there are a lot of very good YouTube videos out there that could also help with this information. However, I would still point out that talking to somebody one on one and building that connection is extremely important. Not only because you get a very personalized outlook to their journey, but also during this entire process, you're going to run into a lot of questions. And having somebody who could help you out with those questions in a more one on one manner would be a great help. So, building those connections would be a good thing to do during this phase. And at the same time, anybody who's gone through the same phase kind of understands the importance of helping each other out. So, I'm sure you'll find people who would be able to help you out. So, yeah, building these connections. Secondly, I also found peers who were going to apply with me. This meant just connecting to other applicants who are in the same mindset, who have just made the decision to apply for a PhD. While this sounds kind of casual, like just making new friends, trust me, it's going to be really important in your journey because there would be points when you would be confused, you would be frustrated, you won't know what's going to happen next, you would be very anxious. So, just having people around you who have the same sentiments, who are going through the same thing, can be really helpful. And more practically, also, there are times when you might miss out on some information, or there are times when people around you know about some things, or you know about something really special. So building that network help in that knowledge transfer as well. So when you find something, you share with your friends, and when they find something, they share with you. Again, it really works on that sentiment of everybody wanting a community and being able to understand and empathize with what the other is going through. So these two bits, which I would broadly call networking, was something I actively engaged in. The next aspect that I looked very deeply into at this time was identifying what are the requirements for a strong application. Now, broadly speaking, there are 3 to 4 things that you need in a PhD application. One is your statement of purpose. Second is, well, your resume, which would cover your research experience. Third, some letters of recommendations. And fourth would be test scores. Now, I think as of now, GRE is not mandatory for any of the applications. TOEFL, however, would be mandatory for you if you are an international applicant. So TOEFL was one thing that I needed to give. So I learned more about what are these different things that I needed to do before I submit my applications. And the two things out of the four that I spent the most time thinking about in this phase was about my recommenders and about my research profile. Firstly, I thought about who are the people who could recommend me. I tried to identify some names, some people I have previously done research with who could speak strongly about my research skills and my strengths. And at this time, I also identified that there's one person I really wanted to recommend me, but my connection with them was not necessarily very strong. So I decided that in the time left, I would try to rekindle this connection with them and make it so that they can learn more about me and it would help them write a stronger recommendation about me. So this is one bit. I will also be going deeper into this in the next video. And another thing was trying to think more about the kind of research profile I want. So this is a very important aspect of your applications bit, because you're basically trying to tell programs that you're a good researcher or you can be a good researcher. So for this, they need a proof. Now that proof can be just talking about your work passionately, talking about your interests passionately. It could be something deeper, like showing them examples of some research work you did before. If you have publications, that's like very ideal. And let's say you have publications, but they are not aligning with the kind of research you would like to do in your PhD, or they do not support the narrative you want to put forward for you as an applicant. For example, I had publications at that time, and they were mostly in qualitative essay kind of work. But I wanted to push myself as a mixed method researcher, which is somebody who has done both qualitative and quantitative research. So I identified that this quantitative research bit might not be so strong, seeing my publications and research experiences. So I decided that in the coming months, I would engage more in quantitative research so that I can talk about that as well in my profile or in my applications, in my SOP. So identifying what are these potential weaknesses that you might have in your application could be a very good thing to do right now, and then planning the rest of the months accordingly. One thing I clearly remember doing was listing down all of these weaknesses that I might have as of now, and seeing and planning how am I going to address each of these weaknesses, which meant finding opportunities to rekindle with my recommenders and finding opportunities to take up research works that would make my quantitative research profile stronger. And that is exactly what I did in the next phase of my application season. In the next video, I will talk a little bit more about what are the different things I did in order to strengthen my connection with my recommender and also to take up interesting and more relevant research work. I hope you learned something through this video, and I'll see you in the next one.